John Bull is a great laugher. He even prides himself on this, but he only laughs at certain things. He would not dream of laughing at everything, nor does he ever laugh at the things that badly need laughing at. He laughs only at things that are unimportant. He uses his laughter, in fine, as a graceful self-indulgence, or as a compliment to a person he esteems. He does not take his laughter seriously. When John Bull is not amused, is when the icy laughter of the satiric muse breaks upon his ear. There is for him something so alien about that uncomfortable type of mirth that he immediately closes up like an oyster or buries his head like an ostrich. Satire is far too real to be at all supportable to our latter-day Bull. When John Bull laughs is when a little clean fun is afoot. And when he definitely does not laugh is when laughter looks like degenerating into something akin to bad form, when laughter is serious, in short, of all disgusting things. The ghastly and tragic laugh of the satirist is a thing that is so deeply resented by the average John Bull that more than 3 centuries after they were written, it is still impossible to produce a Ben Jonson play in London with any prospect of success. The critics, as much as the public, will not tolerate it. Thank heaven that rare Ben Jonson is so rare, one critic wrote after seeing a recent revival of Volpone. And this heartfelt sigh would be echoed by any of his readers who had seen it, with very few exceptions. Yet rare Ben Jonson was as much an Elizabethan John Bull as his namesake, the famous Doctor of Lichfield, was an 18th century John Bull. The satiric Mr. Bull of 1938 is a very different person from the pre-industrial Englishman. Even among Shakespeare's plays, those in which satire lifts its ugly head, or in which the horrid satiric impulse predominates, and our national poet, oddly enough, had more than his fair share of the satiric gift, may not be played except sugar-coated and as interpreted by a Rotarian cast of disarming ladies and gentlemen. A universal lisp goes up from stalls to gallery. Give us Midsummer Night's Dream, oh give us Titania. And the box office receipts are eloquent of the English aversion for the tragic view of the world, of which satire, as much as straight tragedy, is an expression. Such masterpieces as Timon or Troilus and Cressida are never acted, or so seldom, as to be as good as not. And Macbeth, we are always told, is saddled with a theatrical superstition of unluckiness. Something dreadful is said invariably to happen whenever Macbeth is played. This embargo no doubt was fixed on it, I suppose in Victorian times, and we could probably trace it to the unseemly facetiousness of the witches with which the play opens. It starts very snootily indeed. It is an ugly scene upon a blasted heath. This gang of cackling crones is more than either actor or audience could stomach. It was but a step from that to the emergence of a fixed belief that no good could come of playing such stuff. As to Hamlet's un-British treatment of Ophelia, get thee to a nunnery and the rest of it, that has been a scandal with which the matinee idolaters have had to put up for the last century, because of the famous to be or not to be speech and the alas poor Yorick bit and all the other things that make Hamlet so outstandingly Shakespearean. Why poor dear Shakespeare's sweet will would spoil himself by breaking out into unseemly satire the whole time has been a source of perennial wonderment to the modern British playgoer. True, William Shakespeare lived in a savage time, a very savage time indeed, quite unlike ours, in which, though we drop a bomb or two upon each other and starve each other to the bone both in peace and in war, we have rarely attained to a remarkable degree of innocuous politeness. Bombs there may be, but there are no black eyes. Black eyes are important. Two lovely black eyes is a song out of such a different epoch that no one today would understand what it meant. Even pugilists at present seldom seem to get black eyes. If they want to be a little crude, they just hit each other in the stomach. There is no facial disfigurement. A champion pugilist takes his false teeth out and steps into the ring with every confidence that his opponent will behave like a gentleman, and if he must hit him, will do so where it will not show. Million-dollar gate boxers are not the kind of savage bruisers who made Anglo-Saxon sport a byword for brutality. Even an all-in wrestler knows where to stop. But this is the appropriate moment to fix your attention upon the chronological limitations of the term John Bull, and to stress the fact that the Englishman of today is not the typical Englishman, if you will forgive this paradox. English satire is very great. It is not a form of expression from which the English mind, at its most vigorous, has been in the least averse. I have only to name Dean Swift and Lawrence Sterne, Johnson and Congreve, Dryden and Pope, to prove what I am saying. Even as late as Byron, the English satiric impulse was in full swing. So this talk is not an attack upon the laughter of John Bull generally, but only of one John Bull. I have no suspicion of animosity for that rugged yeoman of the ancient cartoon, with the Union Jack plastered upon his belly. But what I want to do is to fill in the background of our laughter. Now, in the word humour, as that is understood by the modern English, the notion of good humour is implicit. There is no hitting below the belt in English humour. To be laughed at by an Englishman is almost a caress by a modern Englishman. Whereas in satire, the continental equivalent of English humour, there are no Queensberry rules. Hitting below the belt goes on the whole time. It is a revolting exhibition of malice, and the fact that it takes the form of laughter only makes it worse. Satire laughs as much as humour laughs, but satire laughs differently. In the satirist's laughter, good humour is not implicit. But it would not be accurate to say, in consequence, bad humour is of the essence of his mirth. We must not jump to conclusions. He merely takes his laughter more seriously, as it were. Laughter for him is an explosive agency, and its object is to blast rather than to tickle. Now, it is this taking laughter seriously that I am sure is at the root of the trouble, and the prime cause of offence in the eyes of the Englishman. There is something improper to the Anglo-Saxon mind in laughing about anything which is marked serious, and in couching anything important in a comic style and trapping. Indeed, it is more than improper, it is impossible. The thing in question ceases to be serious or important the moment it is mirthfully interpreted. Consequently, anything almost can be uttered of the most apocalyptic order, and no one minds a bit, provided it is delivered in a burlesque fashion, of which fact Mr. Shaw has at all times taken the fullest advantage, though the Irish brogue alone would have been sufficient to absolve him of all serious intention. It is a very treacherous enemy indeed who, when you are drinking with him, attacks you. In the same way, a man who is laughing with you, and who insinuates into his harmless, humorous blandishments something of a critical nature regarding yourself, is, to put it plainly, a self-confessed outsider. He is definitely not a Sahib. Laughter, then, is a ritual of good faith with the British. Continentals, on the other hand, do not lock up their jokes. There is no such expression as past a joke or beyond a joke for our continental neighbours. And there is no such pale beyond which the joke may not progress, as if the joke were in some way inferior. With the French, a joke may go anywhere and do anything, except cease to smile. Voltaire made the joke so much respected that at the Revolution the joke became the dictator of France. The French indeed have erected l'esprit into a cult, and a very fine cult it is. But for the Anglo-Saxon, the joke has remained always a little inferior, slightly simple and uncouth. Just as the artist has remained in Anglo-Saxony a person whose function it is to amuse and to please, So laughter has existed as an adjunct of the easy relaxations of a man off duty, where shop must not be talked, nor anything serious touched upon. Now it follows from all this that satire, like serious art, is in England perpetually in a false position. Its seriousness is resented, since it belongs to a department set aside for innocent amusement. There are things that it is appropriate to laugh at, just as there are subjects that are appropriate for art, such as flower pieces, for instance, in oil painting, and other subjects that are too serious for treatment in art. But there is much more than this in the tale of Anglo-Saxon hostility to satire. Other factors have to be taken into account. Confining laughter to gentle and harmless things, and debarring it from treating of savage and dangerous things, is the essence of the situation in which satire finds itself. And since satire specializes, as it were, in savage things, refer to any chapter of Gulliver which has got across only as a nursery tale, it is clearly going to be a little cramping for anyone with a bent that way, for a Hogarth, a Swift, or even a Shakespeare. But as I hinted just now, our time, though outwardly of such unimpeachable politeness, is in fact a very savage one indeed. We expend a great deal of ingenuity and money upon the care of the nation's health. But to place against this, we do a great deal to undermine its health. We kill great numbers of people every year on our roads. And war, having been transformed from a pleasant professional pastime into totalitarian war, is far more murderous. As a consequence of this, we suffer from a bad conscience where anything that is savage is concerned. It has often been remarked by the foreign observer that the Anglo-Saxon is peculiarly prone to humbug. More than anyone, certainly, the Englishman clings to the belief that he is uncommonly humane and civilized, as in fact in the mass he is. His slummy empire, as Mr. Lloyd George once called it, is hidden from his gaze. Having great possessions, he blinds himself to the fact that only by means of immense bombing squadrons can they be protected. Otherwise other people would take them from him as he took them from their original owners. He does not face up to this savage fact. Well, this great disparity between, on the one hand, our professions of disinterested humanity and our quite genuine civilized intentions, for the humbug talk of the scurrilous foreigner is overdone, and we do at least pave our hell with good intentions, whereas many other nations do not trouble even to do that. And on the other hand, the savagery that underlies the sleek externals of our life. This discrepancy is today so enormous that we just could not afford in the Anglo-Saxon world, the sleekest and smoothest of all worlds, to allow laughter to break loose. Not aggressive or active laughter. People who live in crystal palaces cannot afford to have stones thrown about in them. The savagery today is too near the surface to give carte blanche to a specialist in savagery, to ply his trade, and laugh us all off the face of the earth, before we blow ourselves off it with our accumulations of high explosive. That is an eventuality too horrible to contemplate. A sane world would suit no one's book. We have, I suppose, to reconcile ourselves to that fact. We much prefer dynamite to a puff of laughter.